Tonight, the mystery surrounding Malaysia Flight 370. 239 passengers and crew just vanish into thin air. As we learn, the flight abruptly veers off course, and a mystery good night from the pilot. Is there a cover-up?
Somebody reprogrammed the plane's flight path at least 12 minutes before it's believed that the co-pilot signed off.
Data was deleted from Captain Shaw's homemade flight simulator. The transponder was turned off. Radar showed that plane made a sharp turn west.
It wasn't spontaneous. It seemed to have at least some planning.
Everything seems to be pointing in the direction of a criminal investigation.
Straight out to Marty Savage, CNN correspondent. Marty, it becomes more and more curious what we are hearing. And another thing I don't understand, Martin, is that I believe that a black box simulator emits a ping for 30 days. So why can't we at least find the black box?
Okay, a couple of things there, Nancy. First of all, I'll tell you where we are. We're up outside of Toronto, Canada, and this is a simulator, a cockpit simulator of a 777, the same kind of aircraft that 370 was and is now missing. Mitchell Quesada is a pilot. And we should say that the black box you're talking about, of course, is the device that records everything that happened to the airplane when whatever happened to it. The problem is we don't know where the plane is right now, and that box is with the plane. If it's in the water, and if that box is pinging, as you say, putting out this kind of emission that can be picked up on sonar, first you have to know where it is to look. And that's the problem. They don't know where to look. The area where this plane was lost is so geographically huge, it can include all the way up to Kazakhstan or all the way down by Australia. So there is a massive effort underway by 26 nations to try to locate that wreckage if, in fact, the plane crashed. And right now, we don't even know that for certain. But, of course, it doesn't look good. It's been missing for so long.
You know, that's another thing I don't understand, how we can put, I just happened to have come from spring break, Marty, with my children at JFK Space Center. And I've been thinking that we can put a whole space lab up in the air for 6 months with people living in space, and we can't find this plane. It doesn't make sense to me. And then we hear that other countries spotted on their radar, they spotted the plane, but they didn't tell anybody about that until days after. You know, Martin, I truly believe that they did that because they don't want the rest of the world to know the defects in their security systems. That's what I think. But how has that hindered things?
Right, I think that you're absolutely right. From the flying public's perception, not necessarily professional pilots, we always thought that every plane, no matter where you were, and I just did a trip coming back from Australia, you always figured you were on somebody's radar or somebody was watching you by a satellite or controlling or tracking you to always know where you are. How is it that a jumbo jet in this modern day and age can vanish? That's why this story is so captivating to so many people. We now find out that there are places on the Earth where big modern planes can disappear, that radars don't necessarily follow the same kind of things at the same time, different countries, different procedures, on and on and on. But you're right. You put your finger on what is the real issue here, that most people had no idea that in this day and age, a jetliner could simply vanish. And you can bet there's going to be a lot of calls for change on that.
Well, and another thing, and I'm going to go to, try to stay with me, Marty Savage, CNN correspondent. But very quickly, I want to go to John Golia, former board member of the NTSB, aviation safety expert. You know, when I get on a plane, I just assume that my pilot is not actually related to the opposing party leader sitting in jail, which this pilot was. That's a concern to me.
Well, I mean, in this country, we have a political system, and you'll never know who your pilot's party affiliation is. It shouldn't make any difference at all.
Well, you know, you're right in this country, but if I get on a flight that's Malaysian bound, I'd like to know that my pilot is not on a suicide mission. Also with me is Jim Tillman, CNN aviation analyst and retired American Airlines pilot. Captain, thank you for being with us. Jim Tillman also taking your calls. Jim, when I get on a plane,
Yes.
and I've got my 2 6-year-olds with me on either side of me, you know, maybe I'm bamboozled, but I trust the pilots. I take a look at them. I try to speak to them if I can, and I trust them. This is scary to me, that you could have a pilot that is strung out of his mind. He's in the middle of a divorce, like this pilot, angry, upset, distraught. Let me get down to the brass tacks. He said good night. I think it was about 12 minutes after the Malaysian flight veers off course. Is good night, is that a typical transmission from a pilot?
No, it's not typical, but it's not alarming either. I mean, I don't know what the conversation was like between the pilot and air traffic controllers up to that moment. They may have been having a nice little kind of chat session in the middle of the night, and then the guy, rather than give the normal report, just says, okay, all right, good night. I mean, and then would follow. Look, Nancy, we've been dealing with bits and pieces of information from the very beginning, and we're not ever getting quite the whole story. And I would really like to know what that conversation was like up to that point, and would help us to understand something more about this. We're caught in between, was the pilot dirty, getting ready to do something really criminal and awful? Was he coerced somehow with a gun in his ear? Or were they just inept? Or what? I mean, they're all
Jim,
kinds
let me
of
go
scenarios.
with that, what you're just saying. Jim Tillman with me, everyone, CNN aviation analyst. Jim, the fact that he is saying very calmly, good night, this is 12 minutes, I believe they're saying, after the plane takes a diversion, veers off course. That says to me, nobody has a gun to his head, nobody's storming the cockpit, because we would have heard something along those lines. He had already veered off course. I mean, he's flying instrument. He would have to know that he was off course.